component for anybody in recovery like myself is to try to be of service to others. Because clearly, when we recognize that there are others out there who are not only facing the same challenges we are, but in fact facing much greater challenges, which with much fewer resources, it's humbling to us that we would even be allowed to be considered as fellow travelers on the road to recovery when they are facing an amazing, daunting challenge that far exceeds any challenge that I would face, for example. So people say to me, oh, well, you're so courageous, you're able to go out there and tell the world, you know, about your disease. Well, you know what, I also have a few things going for me. And that is, I don't have to worry about an insurance company denying me coverage. And I also don't have to worry about, you know, someone looking at me cross-eyed because I'm less than, because of my illness. Because somehow my 7 letters of my last name kind of like push that back. And so there's no sense for me that I'm powerless when I'm walking around saying I have a mental illness and, you know what, what's the big deal? Because for me, it's not an impingement upon myself and the standing that I have in a room. But it is for most people who don't come from a family with an uncle with president, another who ran for president, another who was senator for 50 years, and a family that is well known as mine. Most people don't walk into a room and have all of that backing them up. So there is a huge stigma, and I would be wrong to say that I am any great hero by talking about my own stuff. Furthermore, I didn't really have a choice in the matter. Because when I ran my car into the barricade, it was pretty much all over for me. I was so dedicated to this issue that I wanted to make, you know, knowing this town and the fact the press never covers the substantive issues, I figured the only way for me to get a lot of splashy publicity on behalf of the mental health parity bill, as a response to the mental health parity bill, was to go out there myself and put myself out there on the line and really raise the consciousness of this issue. And you know what? At the time, I could have never imagined that my lowest point, so to speak, personally, and what I would have thought politically, would have ended up being a triumphant point for me. Because what happened was all of my colleagues started telling me about their challenges and saying to me, you don't know, but you know, I face similar challenges, or my child, or my spouse. I mean, the stories flooded in from my colleagues. And so then I got to say, oh, if that's the case, sign on to our parity bill. For overall health and campaign for health reform and mental health, getting all the folks together, and that was the biggest challenge we had as a community, is getting all the folks in the mental health community together. Sound familiar? We actually had the position where at one point, the biological mental health folks didn't want the, you know, non-biological, the substance abuse folks and other affective disorders piggybacking on them for mental health parity. They said, oh, those are the ugly stepchildren of the mental health movement, as if, you know, they're not already stigmatized enough. Oh boy, we can't bring on those addicts. If we bring those addicts on, boy, we're never going to pass this bill. And that was really the thinking. We better just, you know, leave them to the side, first get parity for the biological illnesses, and then move on for everybody else down the road. Well, of course, the community was smart enough to think that that would violate the very standing and principle that we had going in our favor, that we were all one person. You can't delineate between illnesses, and this notion that you stigmatize an illness by starting to pick which one of them you're going to begin to cover, it got everybody on board. And thankfully that was the case, because united, we were stronger than divided. And that's the message again today. Without any. It's really important that everybody out there send the message. This last health bill that was signed into law was the biggest mental health parity bill ever. I'd like to say that our mental health parity bill was, and in fact it was in the sense that it laid the foundation. We didn't have to debate the debate all over again in this health bill for mental health benefits, because we already fought that fight in 2008. They had to include us. But you can't take anything for granted in this town. The good news was that we were included, not only included, but in the basic benefits package. The challenge now, when you go up there, we have to implement. We're implementing, thank God the lawsuit prevailed on the parity regulations, by the way. But we're about to write, coming up, the regulations for the health reform bill. And this is where it affects all neurological disorders. So if I would have any challenge, it's that we keep with the mission that we're all on the same sheet of music. We all need to work together. What do I mean by that? I mean that all of us are part of a grander effort for those with neurological disorders. First, we fought as a mental health community to get everyone with mental health and mental illness and addictive disorders together. Now, we've got to get all the mental health community, which are all neurological disorders, together with all the other neurological disorders: autism, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, epilepsy, schizophrenia, everybody's together. Now, why? Because I still find it hard to believe that we're all fighting over the same brain. And we all claim that we gotta get our little piece of the pie for research for this neurological disorder, this neurological disorder, or this. Last time I checked, any research in one part of the brain accrues to the advantage of other parts. And we better get it straight, because we don't want to replicate the same mistakes cancer movement made, where for years they were out in their silos, fighting their own fight and missing the big picture. We have too big a fight. We have too big a fight to catch up for lost time and to make the most of this historic moment. This historic moment is that we finally got the genome so we can get the pathology of neurological disorders. We've got the tools. We've got fMRIs and PET scans and the like. And we've got the computing capability to be able to crunch the numbers and do all the complex work that it'll take to sort out the very complexity that is the brain and unlocking the mysteries of the brain. So we all need to be in it together. In other words, we have to be of one mind when it comes to the brain. Get that? We're going to be of one mind when it comes to the brain. And we support our advocacy efforts if we marry ourselves to all the other neurological disorders: autism, Alzheimer's, and all the rest. And by the way, if you have a family member like my cousins do, whose father, Sarge, has Alzheimer's, believe me, that affects you in all the other ways, mental health-wise. If you have a child with autism, believe me, that affects the whole family in terms of other mental health challenges. We're all in it together, so we had better start treating each other as if we're all in the same boat.